Well,
2 girls and 3 boys.
it's the credits.
Whatever that
Once
is.
it gets done, it's the whole agenda is
Yes,
what they do.
they were all here.
Once it gets done, then they put the camera on the mayor.
That was cool. I could have talked to them.
Ready.
That was so interesting.
It's in black and white again?
Talk to them.
No, it's color.
That was cool.
Sorry, I asked that last question. It made us go over our time. I was
No, no, that's
fascinated.
They were here doing government tolerance. They don't have a well, they were trying
Even in their strategies, it was so sort of given that we do it and we chart. You guys are moving. Wasn't emphasized. I'm gonna put this on the floor. I'm gonna put it on top of this. I'll call him. I'm not done with that.
She might be able to.
Yeah.
Do I have like 2 seconds?
Yeah. Yeah. Marnie's not.
let them get seated.
We can't start.
You get my stove. I'm donating my stove from house to the Housing Commission for the community.
That was a very nice thing to do.
Well,
I like it.
we could get money out of it, but it's just.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, April 25th, 2016. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Leaks May,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Pollica,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Piana,
Here.
and Mayor Coulter.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum this evening. The next item of business would be the approval of the agenda.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Except I want to add a presentation, actually. The White family is here to make an announcement, and I'd like to add them as presentation C, if I may, if that's a friendly amendment to your...
I would accept that.
All right. So we have a motion and a support. Any
Yes.
comments on the agenda? Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Martin,
Yes.
Pollica,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Moving on now to presentations. Our first presentation is by the Ferndale Area District Library. Is there a representative of the library here this evening? Oh, there he is. I didn't see you. Hiding behind. I know it, right? We usually take longer than that.
You hit the button.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Good evening, everyone. I'm Adam Steinman of the Ferndale Area District Library. Just a couple of things I want to point out. The people have spoken. We put out a community survey, and amongst a lot of positive things people had to say about the library, one of the things we found that are highly valued are the author events. And in that subject, we have 3 in May. This Thursday, or next Thursday, May 5th at 7 p.m., local prize-winning fiction writer and poet Don Levin will celebrate his latest novel, Guilt in Hiding, at the Ferndale Area District Library. On Thursday, May 17th, the Ferndale Area District Library will host Alex Gino for a discussion of book signing of George, which is the story about a transgendered 4th grader who learns to be herself. This event is co-sponsored by the Book Beat of Oak Park. And on May 19th at 7 p.m., we're going to take a field trip to the Tangent Gallery in Detroit. Station 11 author, which is the Ferndale Reads book for this season, and it's also the Michigan Reads book at the same time. Emily St. John Mandel will be down there for book signing and discussion. And courtesy of the Oak Park Parks and Rec, there'll be buses available. It's free. You have to pay, not pay, but a charge hold of $5 to reserve a seat. It is free. So if you wanted to book a trip down there, you could do that. And that's all I got.
If I may, through the chair, I'd just like to put a plug in that Don Levin's murder mysteries are largely set in Ferndale, the last 3. So they're fun reads from that perspective as well.
Cool.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you coming. Our second presentation would be all the happenings in our great downtown. Downtown Development Director Barry Hicks.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Good evening. And I just have a couple of real quick announcements for you, since you're going to hear a lot more from me later on the budget. April 28th, coming up this week on Thursday, is the Oakland County Main Street Awards at the Royal Oak Music Theater. We should, even though it's kind of late, probably still be able to get you in if you wanted to join, if you haven't already. This year we did nominate the Magic Bag for their sign, for Sign of the Year, and Rick Axe for Volunteer of the Year. So we'll, be rooting for them at that. Also, coming up on May 19th, also a Thursday night, is the Bike Night Rodeo, which is being put on in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department, Police, Fire, and Rotary, as well as the Downtown Development Authority. That runs from 4 to 8 p.m. Kind of the prime location for that is just generally downtown, but Schiffer Park, we're going to have some demonstrations set up for how to take care of bikes and maybe a bike training course. And then also, another reminder, coming up on May 23rd through the 25th is the National Main Street Conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I will be going in attendance on behalf of the Ferndale DDA. Again, if there's people that are interested in participating in something like that, please feel free to get a hold of me. And that's all I have for you right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions for Barry? All right. Thank you, Barry. And then I did want to add the third presentation, the White family, the family of Kayla White, who some of you may remember was a Ferndale resident who was tragically killed in an automobile accident. But the White family has had it as a dream to dedicate a place sculpture and playscape at in Martin Road Park?
Harding.
No, I'm sorry, Harding Park, that's right. And the White family is here. So, Lloyd, do you want to introduce them? And
Absolutely.
yeah.
You have Susan, Russ, and Corey, who I met tonight. And they'd like to make a special presentation to the council.
All right.
And you can see in the backdrop is the play structure
Right.
that will be installed.
At this time, we'd like to
You will come over to that. There we go.
present this check for the play structure for Harding Park.
How do you raise the money?
We did a GoFundMe, and then we did a big fundraiser on April 9th, and we raised almost $10,000 that night.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was a lot of community support, and friends and family and coworkers, and people we don't know. You're welcome. Thank you guys for letting us do it.
Thank you.
We're so excited. So excited.
And most of all, the kids in that area.
Oh, no way.
Really
No way.
appreciate it, and that was her dream. So.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can add just a couple more comments. The play structure is represented on the slide. There will also be an expression swing that they've already paid for. As funds continue to come in, they've continued to offer improvements to the park. And so in addition to this, there is also a penguin play structure and an expression swing, which is a parent-child swing that is very new and popular. So I think it'll get a lot of attention and use at the park. And being that it's right a block away from their home, I think there'll be our outpost to keep an eye on things and let us know if we need to do anything.
I think that's true.
Thank you.
Well, we can't thank you enough, and it doesn't make up for the loss of your family member, but her memory lives on in our park, and we're very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next item of business is a public hearing. This is actually an important meeting in local government, and this is the meeting where we adopt our fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2018 budget and consideration to adopt. And so April, City Manager, will introduce the city budget.
Thank you. For those that are watching, this is not the first conversation we've had about the budget. I'd like to reiterate that this is about the third time, just with this city council that we've actually had this conversation. Again, we met in March, the last Saturday in March, all day, going over the workshop, and then had an overview at the last council meeting. So with our charter, it requires to have a public hearing. So at the last meeting, we had a presentation, and this is more of an opportunity for those to that would like to comment on that before council votes, that we will present you the final budget numbers. I do have a couple of presentations that I like as part of the budget. The first,
You want to do the public hearing first or after your comment?
it's up to you. I want to tell you, I'll
Wait
do a
till your
quick
comment
overview.
so people can react to
that
those.
would be great.
Sure.
So as part of that, sorry, we need to get two of these. Before I go into a quick review of what I'm asking or requesting that council to approve, Barry Hicks is here from the DDA. Typically, they're part of the budget process. However, with him being new this year and they needed some time to really review their budget, they needed some extra time, and it was no problem at all to partner with them to give them all the time that they need to start really taking a look at their budget. So before I go any further, I'm actually going to, I should have just kept this to you, sorry, we do have Barry here to go over the DDA budget, which again is part of the process that City Council approves that budget. So I'm going to actually turn this back over to Barry. So I probably shouldn't have taken the remote, Joe.
It's okay. I think I still have the arrow button here. Do I need to use that, or do I have to? That arrow. Okay. Good evening once again. Like I said, you'll be hearing from me again shortly, very shortly apparently. Yeah, as April mentioned, this is my first year here and first time going through the budget cycle for the Downtown Development Authority. I kind of wanted to recap a couple of things that happened in the past year, as well as what happened during the Downtown Development Authority's goal setting this year, which took place over January and February, and some of the things that came out of that, and then get a little bit more into some of the numbers. So with that, I'm going to kind of get started, and bear with me as I think there's some animations in this slideshow too. So yeah, there we go. There's a nice shot of downtown. So let's see here. So this year, in the past year, in 2015, first I want to go over the district by some of the numbers. Public investment that we saw was over $400,000. Private investment we saw, which is rehab of buildings or construction, would have been about $2.2 million. We saw about 34 new construction jobs added over the course of 2015, approximately 24 building rehabs, about 34 full-time jobs were gained roughly throughout the course of 2015. About 34 part-time jobs were gained as well. We received about $40,000 in sponsorship, although I do believe at this point in time that number might be just a little bit higher, but that's what we have reporting right now. And then we actually are down about 2 businesses overall in the Downtown Development Authority area. In 2016, like I mentioned in January and February, we kind of did something I think a little bit different than what the DDA did in the past, which was go through a strategic planning process. This took place over about 3 different public meetings that we held at the library here at Council Chambers and at the Kulik Center on Livernois. And this was the full DDA board was in attendance for most of this. I believe we only had 1 absence at one of those meetings for a little while. And I know several of the council members attended some of these as well. And what we did was we hired a professional business coach basically to come through. The things I kept hearing when I first started were the DDA has some plans that are rather large in scope and lots of different projects and things they want to do, and not that any of those are necessarily bad things, but we tried to pare it down and think, okay, realistically, what can we start kind of chipping away at so we can check things off our to-do list? So I really wanted to know what was important to the DDA board, and that's what this whole process was about. It also looked at us a little bit internally as an organization, what we were doing in terms of what we were doing, versus what they wanted us to be doing as a board, and see if that was lining up. Were there any mismatches or anything like that? And out of that, we, oh, sorry, I had one more slide in there. That was also was kind of my idea, was to gain all of that input from the DDA board, set our priorities based on that, and then develop sort of a universal message, which has been a little bit ongoing at this point, but I think we're about there, so that we can develop some kind of, for lack of better terms, maybe an elevator speech, or kind of a value statement, if you will, so that when we talk about the Downtown Development Authority, whether it be to volunteers, to potential new committee members, board members, the people in the community, whoever it may be, we can deliver a solid, unified message about what the DDA is and what we do and what our objectives are. So we had a lot of really great ideas, like I said, that came out of this, but I was trying to pare some of those down. And what I found was we came up with the top 5 areas of focus. The first of which was branding and marketing, and I'll get into these just a little bit more in the next couple slides. The next was being a business resource. The third was the downtown experience itself. The fourth was our volunteer base, and the fifth was that we wanted to be a data-driven professional organization. And what that means is, let's look at marketing first. Some of the things we talked about were establishing our brand and our value, which I already touched on a little bit. The elevator speech, what does the DDA do? What is our universal message we want to deliver? We want to develop kind of a marketing strategy. One of those things, for example, might be a business retention strategy, which we've already started working with through our business development committee in the DDA. The next thing was act as a business resource, which I'm going to bleed over into that from what I was just saying about the business retention program. Also, identifying and cross-promoting programs with different resources and different partners. As you might have heard even earlier tonight, I made mention of the bike rodeo. That is not just a DDA event. That involves the Rotary Club. That involves police, fire, parks, and recreation. We do a lot of things with the Chamber of Commerce or the library. So we try to cross-promote and make sure that we're sending a consistent message and brand when we have things that we're doing with our partners. And then our third objective, which we're going to begin working on here, is identifying third-party programs or resources, and then also our business attraction strategy, which again is kind of already started underway through our business development committee. The next thing was the downtown experience, and we all heard about the things we're doing well. I heard flowers and planters come up a whole lot, and everybody seems to like those, but we didn't want to just sit and dwell on that. We also talked a little bit about public art was part of our downtown experience. We wanted to address certain vacant storefronts, which thankfully we don't have a whole lot of those, but the ones that we do have, we'd like to be able to better utilize. And see if there's a message we can put in those or something in the interim under construction or, the downtown Ferndale experience, whatever it may be while they're in transition. We also talked a little bit about multimodal transportation. I know this has been brought up in several different forums I've been in through the city's master land use planning sessions, through city council's planning sessions when we were talking about the budget a few months ago. We talked about bus rapid transit coming to the area. We also talked a lot about bicycle transportation, walkability. Those are things that they felt added to the downtown Ferndale experience. And this one that says outsource events is we still want to do events as the DDA, as an organization, but we think there's more opportunity to partner with third parties to do some of those events that might be more effective at promoting or have the resources to be able to assist us with that and make those a little bit more successful. The next thing was to develop our volunteer base, which was we wanted to improve engagement. That goes back again to talking about what our volunteer needs are and what our message is about the Downtown Development Authority. Also developing a volunteer recruitment strategy, which I know we've assigned a couple of board members to be sort of champions for that. We've already begun we're into a little bit of a timeline at this point where we want to, hopefully that will lead to an event this summer and we'll have more information about volunteer opportunities. Also about volunteer appreciation, appreciating the people that do volunteer for us currently. The next thing was being a data-driven and a professional organization. The first of which we've actually started implementing right now, which is we wanted a better customer relationship management application. We were kind of running on the old Excel spreadsheet, kind of digging for data and information whenever we needed it. It was a little bit of a archaic way of finding it. We've already started to make those technological improvements. Same with the volunteer-based application, so that when we do talk to potential volunteers, we're getting them interested in the areas they want to participate in, and hopefully not just targeting them for anything, but the things that they want to do. An easily understood and transparent budget, which we're in the process of doing right now, and then making sure that these systems are in place. And we're trying to be a well-oiled machine so that we're not all these separate little units, which is what I was getting at with this, if you can't see that. It says the on one door, department of on another, federal on another, and efficiency on another. So we're trying to get away from that model and streamline things a little bit for us. We wish we had unlimited resources like that. But in all reality, we're operating a little bit more on this. So, that kind of brings me to our fiscal year 2015-16 budget amendments. Some of the big things you're going to see in there is there was a decrease in our personnel costs from $147,000 down to $95,200. This is largely due to the fact that you had a temporary decrease in staffing at the DDA for about 6 months last year. That's where that went. Operating supplies was decreased. And I found this is another thing I want to work on going forward. We're charging actually a lot of stuff to this particular budget for operating supplies that has a lot to do with, like, if we buy new banners for downtown, for example, or if we bought, whatever it may be, some kind of public improvement. And that's another one of those things that I want going forward in the future that maybe needs to be separated out in some other line items to be a little more clear as to what it is. Because when I first saw it, I thought it was like, boy, we're buying a lot of pens. Which is not the case. Contractual services increased from $37,500 to $67,100. The biggest reason for this is the DDA last April hired a media consultant that's helping us do our Facebook and Twitter and email blasts and just generally our marketing, print materials and all that, as well as we hired a business coach to help us go through this next year to kind of make sure we're on track with our goals, the 5 objectives we're looking at. So there were a number of things that were put in here that I don't think were originally intended. Oops, I'm going backwards on that. The next thing was training and education had a slight, not a slight, but an increase from $8,400 to $15,000. And the biggest thing I was able to note with that, it seemed that there was some end-of-year training that maybe didn't get paid as a fiscal year crossed over into another fiscal year. I think it's kind of a technicality thing, but that's really where that came from. Looking at our proposed budget for 2016-17, the personnel costs, we're looking at about, that's a pretty precise number there, but it'll be about $144,000. This is including 3 full-time staff members. At this point in time, kind of as April had mentioned originally, the DDA, we want to be transparent and kind of give you an idea of where our thoughts are at right now. Whether or not we'll actually hire 3 full-time staff is still debatable, but I created the budget as kind of a highest cost, worst case scenario, so that we included any potential costs and made sure we weren't going over. We may stick with 2 full-time, 1 part-time. The contractual services budget is a little more reflective of what you saw in 2015-16 amendments. Again, that's because we're assuming we're going to continue services with our marketing firm, as well as our business development coach, as well as this is us where we're charging some of those things like the customer relationship management applications that you were seeing. Again, probably in the future I'll make a different line item for that, but that's where it's going right now. And our capital outlay went down to 0. It was at $30,000 before. I didn't set aside any money to do capital projects this year. I should note, and it's not in this presentation, but that the DDA still does have a cash fund available of about $519,000. So in the event that we did have a capital outlay project, or say a big grant opportunity came through and we needed to match 20% or whatever, we can have that discussion at that time. As of right now, it's just not programmed in the budget. Also, a couple things I wanted to talk about. Main Street is changing just a little bit. This is the way that it was. They used to require, and for those of you that don't know what Main Street is, that's a program that the Downtown Development Authority participates in, the city of Ferndale, that kind of has an approach to how to redevelop your downtown. It includes things like marketing and volunteer engagement and that sort of thing. Anyway, Oakland County has a Main Street program we participate in. We are required to do quarterly reporting for statistics, which are a lot of those statistics I shared with you at the very beginning of this presentation. We have to track those quarterly anyway. There's also quarterly trainings that are required through the program to make sure we're doing things in accordance with the requirements of that program. There's also the annual evaluation and certification. Here, these last two, the 4-point approach with 4 committees and developed work plans, what these two are committees like economic restructuring, organization, design, and this was very, very, very strictly adhered to in the past by the Main Street program. However, we started thinking more project-oriented as we went through our visioning process. What projects do we have to work on? Main Street seems to be kind of heading the same way Ferndale's going anyway, so it's nice that it happens to line up. These first 3 things are still there, the quarterly reportings, trainings, and annual evaluation. However, we do not have to follow the 4-point approach anymore. We do still have 3 committees that are active at the moment, and we'll continue to keep those volunteers working on a project-by-project basis, though. Which does not necessarily require a work plan. Those are no longer required to be turned in either. So these are some things that were extremely time-consuming in the past and didn't always line up with what we wanted to do. I was rather pleased to hear that those are not really requirements anymore of the program. I will learn a little bit more about this too in May after I go to Milwaukee to the Main Street program, because I think they're going to hit on a lot of this stuff again. But I just wanted to give you a cursory overview of that. And with that, that is the end of my presentation.
No, we got it earlier today.
Barry, does the budget show you using fund balance this year?
Yes. This year, again, I actually kind of planned for the absolute worst case scenario, and this year's budget does show us using a fund balance of about between $11,000 to $12,000. As of right now, I don't actually think we're going to end up using it, but again, like I said, worst case scenario.
Let me interrupt for just a minute, because I was remiss earlier when the meeting started. We have a special group with us this evening, and I want to acknowledge them because I know they can't stay for the entire meeting. But we have a group of, a delegation of emerging leaders from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that have come to the United States on the International Visitors Leadership Program to learn about current U.S. culture and society. They've chosen Ferndale to come to learn a little bit more about local government. So we're very excited to have you. We're very honored that you chose Ferndale, and we hope you learn lots about the United States. So thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If I may, so I'm program director for the International Visitors Council, which is international delegation. So I wanted to also thank everyone for having me here.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Our pleasure. All right, other questions of Barry? Yes.
If I may.
Yeah.
First, the gains in jobs and that you mentioned at the beginning of your presentations, is that net jobs we've lost from businesses closing, or is that just in general new jobs in totality?
That would take into consideration both the jobs we lost and gained, so we're up, actually.
So that's a net gain.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. And when you hire people, I know we did for your position, but are we utilizing the city's HR resources? So if you talk about going from 2.5 to 3, is the intent then to kind of leverage economies of scale and use our resources here to help with that?
The general answer would be yes. We are absolutely going to utilize the city's human resources. I know I've worked with Jenny quite a bit on some of those items.
And I think, two more. The public art piece, I think, is very important, and it's very popular. And I know that you're partnering with the Ferndale Arts and Culture Commission to do some events. But when it comes to selection and displaying of public art, it seems like every organization in this city has an arts committee. And I would just like to encourage more collaboration on the actual development and displays, so everybody's not throwing something up on every other wall. So there's some level of coordination there. It's been a conversation for many years. I think it's really important. I think we've got a ways to go on collaboration there. So I'd encourage you to pursue that. And then lastly, you talked about changes in the Main Street program. So this budget covers a couple years. Do you feel personally that the Main Street program is still the way to go for us?
Right now, I would say the Main Street program seems like they're going through a little bit of a transition. I know when I first showed them what we were doing as far as developing our one-page strategic plan that was very project-based and not committee-based like they're used to, they applauded us because that's kind of the way that they're encouraging some of their other Main Street communities to go. So I guess really, I think to be able to answer your question, all I can say is time will tell. We'll see how that sort of lines up with what they're doing, because I really think their culture is shifting in what they're focusing on. So it may end up working out to our advantage.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of Barry?
Yes, through the chair. I just wanted to say I'm really pleased and impressed the direction the DDA is going. I was part of a couple of the strategic planning sessions, so I really appreciate the tightening up and getting more focused by the DDA. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all of the work that you're doing to pull the DDA forward.
Thank you.
I have some questions, though, about one of your goals, and it's mostly about what I would like to see strengthened as in the discussion, maybe behind the scenes at DDA board meetings or with council. And it really comes down to the, I think it's the downtown experience. I sort of see an area of opportunity to strengthen the amount of budget allocation for downtown services, which I call services of taking care of the downtown. Based off of my review, the DDA spends at least 24%, 25% of your budget on taking care of the downtown. And I really don't see a really strong goal about looking at the type of services the DDA provides and the quality of service, and do we need to look at providing or strengthening that service to address some of those issues. So the way that I talk about it is that downtown organizations provide supplemental services to take care of the downtown, and the DDA has been doing that for over a decade, and that is trash recycling and removal, graffiti removal, planting, flowers, landscaping, sidewalk power washing on an annual basis. And so I would like to see these types of services pulled out more in your budget to help follow and align with the city's direction of a priority-based budgeting, which I heard you say in the beginning that is your direction you want to go. I'm affirming your statement on that. But I really would like to have a stronger conversation about what these services are, and is there a growing need to take care of a broader set of services for the downtown.
May I piggyback on that? Do you mind?
Sure.
Chair? I would also, in that conversation, focus on snow removal, because this comes up every year. Whose responsibility is it? We've come out that it's solidly the business owners for snow removal, but that participation is inconsistent. Maybe a holistic solution is for a DDA type solution for that. I don't know. I would just like, to Mayor Pro Tem Spiana's point, I would like to make sure snow removal is part of that conversation, because it's a sticking point year after year that comes up.
Right. Yeah. So scope of services for the downtown. Where does it fit in with your goals for the year? And what do we need to do to fund it or or strengthen funding to expand that type of service, like adding on snow removal, which your budget has, the DDA budget has never had the capacity to take on snow removal. So if that's a desire of businesses in the downtown, how are we going to pay for that as a broadening scope of services?
I agree. I think we just have that mission discussion first of what that should be, and then
Right.
figure it back out.
Right, because as we get new residents in the downtown, as we grow and we have redevelopment of parcels, your needs of your services change. And so I'd like to see how we're going to address that on a longer-term basis.
Yes, and to address that, absolutely, I know the DDA, myself and all the board, we're open to discussions for ideas on that. I know I've already had a couple conversations with different city officials, and we're kind of thinking about some of those things, just so that you know, kind of in the background.
Yeah, just to confirm, I've had several conversations with business owners over the winter who have said, we'll pay an extra, fee to have our sidewalks done. It's one of their argument was, they see the DDA plowing the parking lot, with the little shovel guy, and it's like, can't I just pay the guy $10 to come over here and clean my sidewalk? So
Is little shovel guy the technical term for that?
yes, yeah, it's on the side of the
Thank you.
the vehicle, yeah, little
That'll
shovel
be
guy.
in my budget next year, little shovel guy line item.
And let me just say, as a member of the DDA board, I truly appreciated the process that you used to come up with these goals and objectives. I feel like really for the first time since I've been on the board, we have definable goals and objectives that we'll be able to hold ourselves to year after year. And so I think you're off to a great start in, as you said, sort of narrowing to some degree the amount of things that we take on, but really holding ourselves accountable and then putting the budgets in place to support the things that are, most beneficial to the downtown. So I appreciate the work that you did there and the work you did on the budget as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, April,
I'll keep going.
you can keep going with the rest of the budget
I
then.
can.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Barry.
And Joe, we only have a few slides, so you can, if you just wouldn't mind moving them for me, that would be great. Thank you. True assistant city manager at work right there. So while Joe is opening that up, I think that for me, this is one of the more exciting budgets for a couple of reasons. And one is that we were able to maintain our current millage rate, but at the same time, you'll see a common theme as it relates to the word reinvestment, and that we were really able to start this year really truly looking at reinvesting back in our community. And I think I want to say before I go there that this is our fifth year doing the budget during a time when the economy was doing us no favors, if you will. And I commend City Council very much, though, for not letting us just sit there and be sad about it. And you guys really demanded that city staff be incredibly creative and become efficient. And it really forced us all of our departments, myself, to look internally about how can we continue to keep providing that service delivery that our residents want. And how do we do that with our budget dwindling? And you can't see here, but in 2014 was the pinnacle of where, even with the full-on Headley, we were still at a lower revenue rate than we were in 2009. And that was very disheartening. But again, council at this time, over the last 5 years, had said that's not an excuse for us not to provide superior customer service. And so I think we've done a really good job at being creative and using the efficiencies that we needed to put in place to continue to provide that, maximizing the talent that we had, taking the tools that we had to continue to provide that. But this is the year we were finally able to start really looking at reinvesting back in our community through new programs. You'll see here the rates the millage rates that we're asking or recommending that council approved tonight are maintaining the general operating as we can. However, or that were allowable, I want to have a caveat here that it's important for the general public to know, too, that we continue to see these challenges of what's called the heavy rollback. And so we saw almost over a 4% increase in taxable value, but we were not able to capture all of that because we only had a rate of inflation of 0.3% this year. So for us, that revenue was a loss of almost $500,000 that we were not able to capture as revenue. So you'll notice that there is a heavy rollback on the general operating. We were able to maintain actually it's a half a mil loss in that value. And then the voter approved heavy we're keeping stable now. We're recommending for 3 years in a row at the 4.45. Again, at the height in 2014, we had to have the full 5.4 mils to balance that budget, and we're pleased to be able to report that this reinvestment that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes is with keeping that millage rate flat at that 4.45. Again, that heavy rollback has to be addressed and included in the solid waste, so you'll see a decrease in that as well by a little bit under half a mil, I think.
So to be clear, the overall millage rate will decrease more than 1 full mil.
It will.
As a result of the general operating millage decrease.
Yes. Yep. We're maintaining that stabilization. And then what's also important to know is that during this time of financial hardship and sacrifice, we actually increased our bond rating to a AA-, which is significant because now we're going back out for debt service to the roads that the residents approved back almost a year ago. And we are looking at a significantly lower interest rate than we are projected, and a lot of that has to do with the market, but the other portion of that is our increase in our bond rating. So we're actually seeing a decrease in our GOT bond rate of how much millage that we need to support those payments. We're going to actually, I wish we had the final number today, but we're actually not selling our bonds, if you will, until the middle of May. So we'll know more then, and there might even be a lower decrease in that. So I think, again, I can't reiterate enough the partnership with staff and council in making sure that we didn't just sit back and manage these last 5 years. We were really proactive. And that it signifies not only in being able to maintain that budget, but then also to look at increasing our bond rating. I think it's important to note that. So next slide, please. Sanitation rates they continue to rise at a level of to manage the increased costs there. There is important note here for the sanitation rates. We always like to try to stabilize the rates as much as we can, but one of the things that we are working very closely with SACRA is that ability to go to single stream recycling. Now that is not a done deal by any means. We're projecting out what those costs could be. We have to work through that process with SACRA. But the goal is that they're going to have a single stream facility open by July of 2017. Which is expensive to open, but also will change the way we recycle into single-stream recycling, which will be much easier and also allow us to have much larger carts. So instead of those of us who recycle having 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 recycle bins in our front yard, they become large, I think 50-gallon drum, 65-gallon push carts to allow for more recycling. Again, that is not a done deal, but this is what we're projecting the cost will be, which is baked into those rates. And more to come on that, but again, as we look to your budgeting, we try to forecast that, but once we know more what that really looks like, there may be an adjustment to that, and also to ensure that we are moving in that direction. So that's just that's where we are today, and we'll continue to monitor that situation and address those accordingly. With that, typically in this time, we would also approve water rates, but we are currently working through, if you recall, last year, we were part of the Wolf lawsuit that challenged how, not if, but how we paid for our stormwater, the stormwater portion of our water bills. And it's argued that some of it needs to be put on the taxes, divvied up differently between whether it's on your tax bill or in your water bill. And as we were prepared to talk about this evening. We were confirming how it goes on our tax bill, and we just need to double or triple check, if you will, what that looks like. So we'll be bringing back the water rate discussion at our next meeting as soon as we have that data. It may or may not require another public hearing, so if you don't see it on May 9th, it might be because we have to post it differently, but we'll keep council and the residents posted on our water rates. We're working through that right now, and also working with Plant Moran on that water model to ensure that we have the most accurate rates available. In general, we've remained flat. Again, it may seem unusual to not go by department, each department, when you're talking about the budget in particular. Again, this is our third conversation about the budget. But again, we've really kept our expenses very neutral and have really focused this year on a reinvestment in staff and in capital. And again, we're able to keep the millage rate at a stable rate, so we're really excited about that. But you can see by the chart, we've remained fairly consistent as it relates to, we talk mostly about the general fund because that hits the taxes the hardest. It remains about 65% as staff, and again, it's because we're a service industry, not a product industry, and so we remain consistent at that 65%. But for those that are interested, that is where all the little pockets go as it relates to general fund. And in DPW, the general fund portion is primarily parks. The other functions that DPWs provide are in water, sanitation, and in roads. You see the majority of their costs are allocated there. So again, let's talk about that reinvestment. I think that it's so important, and we continue to talk about the goals that council have and continually moving our community forward. And I think that this budget really talks and speaks about that in two ways. And in fact, I want to start something a little different that we haven't really done in the past, but do a budget highlight each year. And this year, this budget highlight, I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to actually have Captain Palazzolo come and the Chief of Police talk about 21st century policing. But that is one of the areas that we have reinvested is in public safety. We're adding a firefighter to help with efficiency with the fire department, and then the biggest component that we have here that is our budget highlight for the year is our 21st century policing model. I'm going to finish up the reinvestment conversation and bring up Captain Palazzolo to talk about that. The other significant portion of the budget includes the ballot initiatives that our residents supported last year, which is our infrastructure, keeping our roads healthy, and investing in our parks. So again, you can see that common theme of people and parks and infrastructure. So with that, though, I do want to highlight, because we have talked a lot about over the last few months about the road bond initiative and what that looks like. I want to have Captain Palazzolo have an opportunity to come in and talk about 21st century policing and what that's going to mean to this community. So with that, bring you up.
So we're going to talk about a few things here today. Number one is going to be the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. We're going to talk about pillars. They're basically the foundation of what law enforcement is and how we react to the community. We're going to talk about some principles, and then I'm going to kind of give you a brief overview, almost like a real quick audit to let you know that we're really doing what we need to be doing to come in line with the President's task force. So I want to read a couple things here to you. Principle 1, the basic mission for which the police exist is to prevent crime and disorder. Principle 2, the ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police actions. Principle 3, police must secure the willing cooperation of the public in voluntary observance of the law and be able to secure and maintain the respect of the public. I'm going to read one more. Principle 7, police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic traditions that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community and welfare and exercise. So you're not going to find these principles inside the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing because these were generated in 1829. by Sir Robert Peel. He is the grandfather of police. He turned the Metro London Police Department, and these were the very basics of how the police and the public should interact. We know what we need to do. Sometimes we need some reminders. Sometimes we need a little guidance along the way. So let's go a little bit more into the President's Task Force. So the 6 pillars, and I'm going to go through each one of these, and some of them are more important than the other. And as I'm going through them, I'm also going to relay to how we are interacting with these pillars, with our police department, and with our community. So pillar 1 is building trust and legitimacy. If everybody here has seen the news over the last 20 months, and the face of law enforcement, the face of the United States really has changed in light of some current events. So the number one problem we're seeing with those current events is there has been a loss of trust between the police and the citizens that we're paid to protect. So one of the main things that we want to do is continue to build this trust, and for the people that we are working with, they need to trust that what we're doing is fair, it's right, it's just, it's ethical, it's moral, and overall that it's legal. We're going to come back to Pillar 1 in a minute. Pillar 2, policy and oversight. We are in the process at the Ferndale Police Department is completely redoing all of our policies so that we're contemporary with law enforcement. We're following the guidelines that the DOJ has set forth. So I feel like we are on par to be doing exactly what we're expected to be doing. In that policy is built-in oversights where we are going to be policing fairly. There's going to be procedural justice. We'll be checking on our folks to make sure they're doing what they say they're doing when they say they're doing it. There's built-in flags through different software that we're using now that allows us to, if we see a pattern of something that's not following the guidelines we want, we can take corrective action fairly quick to nip that. Pillar 3, technology and social media. By technology, they're talking about things like body cameras, any other little piece of technology that we can use to help assist us. We've had videos and audio in our vehicles for 10 years at least, maybe a little bit longer. We're currently researching body cams. We understand that it is not a fix-all, but it is another tool that we can use. And if this is a tool that helps us build that legitimacy and that trust with the community, that's something we're definitely pushing forward with. We're going to have some T&E models here that are current with our camera systems in our cars now, and hopefully we'll be testing those by the end of summer. Social media. I'm sure everybody here has some interaction with social media. We want to do better at using that social media to get our view across. Pillar number 4, community policing and crime reduction. You know, the reality is if we don't feel comfortable to take our garbage out or walk to the store without being a victim of a crime, everything else is kind of irrelevant. So we need to really work with the community to be that eyes and ears for us. The more hands that we can touch in those neighborhoods with the watch groups and the neighborhood crime reduction plans, the better we'll be. The community policing really kind of encompasses a lot of this, and a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about here is the idea that we are going to have a dedicated community engagement officer. And this person is going to do a ton of things that we're going to ask him to, and I'm going to go into very specifically on about 7 or 8 of these things that we're going to be asking this officer to do. Pillar 5, training and education. I feel like we're pretty good at this. We've always been pretty good at this. We're bringing some online resources to bear now that we're going to be able to do a lot more training than sending an officer out to an 8-hour school. And Pillar 6 is officer wellness and safety. It's taking care of our people, not only on the job, but outside of work, healthy lifestyles. But we've always been pretty good at that. So let's talk about the community engagement officer. So the idea was that we have somebody that's dedicated to do all the things that we want to engage with the community with. Number 1, it's about building partnerships. We're going to expect this community engagement officer to go to every single church. I think we have 10, 12 churches here in Ferndale, some different denomination. They're going to go there. They're going to build a relationship with this pastor or this rabbi, and then in turn, once that trust is built, that rabbi or that pastor can go out and talk to all their parishioners, and now we've just made 200 new friends just out of one church. Crime prevention with an emphasis on education. We want this community engagement officer to go and meet every single business owner we have in Ferndale. We want to put a name to that face. We want to, explain to them what our expectations are, what they can expect from us. And then also with that crime prevention, getting out into the neighborhoods and working with the block clubs. He's also going to be our new public information officer. So what you see is, anytime you see a Ferndale police officer on the news explaining a situation or a story, it's going to be this community engagement officer. We talked about the liaison between the neighborhood and block clubs. In the last 3 weeks, we've been to 2 different block club meetings and talked about crime prevention. We met with senior citizens and talked about senior safety and scams and things like that. We anticipate, once the word gets out that this is something that we're actively looking to do, that these are going to triple or quadruple every month. This community engagement officer is also going to be the director of our Ferndale Citizens Police Academy. We used to have this about 6-7 years ago. We're going to reinstitute that. We'll get with social media experts and we'll push that out, and if anybody's interested to see what we do, how we do, why we do it from the inside, that would be a great way to meet with us and better understand what we do and why we do it. We spend an enormous amount of time dealing with neighbor problems. 2 people don't get along for whatever reason. The officers go there, they quell that problem for the night, but they really don't get to the core issue. So our community engagement officer is going to be trained, and he's going to have some negotiating type skills. We're going to ask him to go and kind of mediate some of these neighbor disputes. So hopefully it'll cut down on the amount of nuisance calls that we respond to over and over and over again. Coordinating community policing not only in our city but in the cities that are surround us. Something that happens down on Piccadilly Street or Danbury or something down in the city of Troy is the same problems that we're having in our city. So if we can meet those block clubs and get more engaged with them, it's going to be better for everybody. Same thing goes for Oak Park, Royal Oak Township, Hazel Park, north, south, east, or west. We're going to reach out to all those neighboring communities because we're all basically in the same area dealing with the same problems. Like I said, he's going to be our social media coordinator. He's already got a pretty good handle on that, but we're going to keep driving that home. Kind of a neat little picture up there. Everything we deal with, whether it's Peel's principles from the 1800s or the Presidential Task Force on 24 Policing, it's all about doing things right. We know we're doing things constitutional, right? But when we add these things, the proper policies in place, guiding our people what to do, training them properly, the proper supervision in place, that kind of keeps everybody in line. We used to always talk about the warrior mindset. There is a place to be a warrior. There's a time and place where we need to use those skill sets that we possess, but we're transitioning more into being a guardian. If you think of somebody, a guardian of a child or something, you're there to protect them, protect their interests in everything they do. So that is a philosophy that we're going to move towards, is that guardian mindset. We talked about a little bit in Peel's principles. It's policing with the community, not to the community. It's being part of that community. As the workforce becomes more mobile, people don't necessarily live in town. So our workforce isn't generated from inside the city of Ferndale for the majority. There was a time when every police officer that worked here probably grew up here. He probably lived in this neighborhood. His kids played with everybody else in the neighborhood. So some of those neighborhood disputes or things that came up were handled on the front lawn, maybe raking leaves. We've just kind of lost that with that mobile workforce. So with this community policing and this community engagement officer, we're looking to reconnect at every level, back on the streets, back with the community, back with the people who live here. And on the other hand, it also we show that mutual respect, we expect to get that a little bit of mutual respect in return, and that just comes from the legitimacy and working together. So I will answer some questions if anybody has any.
Other questions of Captain Pelzo?
Not questions, just a comment. This is a fantastic program, and I'm so glad we're investing in this and the time in this. I think this is really going to have rich dividends for us, and it's more in the kind of the spirit and culture in Ferndale too. So, thank you for doing this work.
You know, we can talk about this stuff, but the reality is, it takes the vision and it takes the commitment from the people sitting up there, the mayor and the council and the city manager and the chief of police, and all the other department heads working together. So it's not just us doing it; it's all of us doing this together.
I have a question. Based on your verbiage, have you selected someone for the position? Has someone been hired, or has someone been promoted into the position?
We have not. We know who we're going to pick for that position. Okay. Best person that we have on the department.
Okay.
Sergeant Brown is our selection for that.
Excellent.
For that decision. Yeah.
Very supportive.
Agreed.
Through the chair?
Sure.
I echo everybody on council. Just so excited that we're moving in this direction and the benefits will bring. I do have a suggestion for you. A couple years ago, the city went through a rebranding effort, and we would really like the police department to seriously consider adopting the Ferndale F as part of aligning with the community values. So as the department changes, seriously consider how we can integrate this into 21st century community and perhaps view it as a rebranding of the department to align with your new direction.
You know, we've talked about it a little bit. We're considering this the beginning phase of our rebranding. Every top, bottom, lower, I mean everywhere. So we're looking for kind of like a whole facelift or face change of the department. And if it means we add a little F with a couple blue lines in there, we can probably do that.
I mean, to that point, there's probably no area of city government that is more steeped in tradition than the police department, and so as a result, a natural result of that, there's probably no department that changes more slowly. I think that's just a fair thing to say. But I do want to thank. Starting with our police chief, because we do community policing now. It's not that we don't do community policing. We've always considered ourselves a community policing model. So we have a foundation to build off of. But to change the way you're talking to the 21st century model, actually hiring a dedicated person, and hiring the person is only one piece of this. I want to make sure the public understands. There's a process that will get rolled out over time. This won't happen overnight. But to take it from where we are to the 21st century policing model, I commend the department for taking these steps, because as you've said, the world has changed in the last couple of years, and Ferndale likes to stay on the front end of these issues, and I think this is going to help our police department do this. So I applaud you and the department.
I think part of the appeal of putting Sergeant Brown in that position is, number one, he's a command officer. He's well respected. He was born in this community. He went to school in this community. He's never worked another job outside of here. He started at the city yard. He worked for the parks. He worked DPW. And then he's been with Ferndale Police Department for going on 21 years. So he is Ferndale. And like I said, he is a command officer. He's respected. He's respected by the younger guys. He's respected by the veteran officers as well. And he knows a lot of people in the community.
Yeah, he does.
So it's a perfect choice.
Great choice.
Excellent choice.
All right. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. So, April.
Yes.
Pardon me? Yeah, we do. Yep. Thank you.
So, again, I can't reiterate enough. I think you've heard some of the new programming that we're doing, while, again, maintaining a stable budget. And that's why we're not going line by line, because we really have stayed flat. And we did have great conversations about that in late March. So What you do have before you is an updated resolution that has been updated in the packet that does not include, as we talked about, the water. If council continues to be supportive of this resolution, then, or of this budget, then I respectfully ask that you support this budget through, I think there's two, you have to approve.
Well, before we get to that, we need a public hearing.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Right? So now that we've had the presentation on the budget, including the DDA and the changes to the police department, I will officially open the public hearing to see if there's anyone from the audience that would like to address council this evening on the 2017 and 2018 budget for the city of Ferndale. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And now, is it a series of motions? Let me hang on here. What would be in order?
Yeah, I'm a little confused.
There's
two motions.
There's in the packet, and then
We did the
there's...
budget one first, right?
You don't have to read that whole resolution.
All right.
Come on.
If you want
So the first one is, I would move that we adopt the biennial budget for fiscal years 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018 as submitted by the city manager on April 25th, 2016, and that we also adopt the appropriations resolution setting tax rates, sewer rates, and tax rates for the fiscal year 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018 as submitted by the city manager.
sanitation.
Support.
All right, moved by Martin, supported by Polika. Any discussion on the budget? We've talked about it at numerous points. Don't take our silence as not, this isn't important, we've just
Hours
talked
and
lots
hours.
and lots and lots about the budget. But I appreciate, again, all the staff's hard work to put this budget together. Not only, by the way, this is a two-year budget, so we're also looking out 2 years, but I appreciate all the effort. It's an enormous amount of effort behind the scenes that starts last summer, frankly, and leads to tonight, but thank you for that. All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, on the adoption of the budget, Councilmembers Polka,
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank
And
you.
on the appropriations resolution, Councilmembers Piana.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Polka.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. Both of those items are adopted. All right, that was a long way to get to call to audience. Thank you for sticking with us. But if this is the appropriate time now, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address council on any agenda item, on any item that is not on the agenda, because you'll get an opportunity to speak to that when we get to that portion of the agenda. But if you'd like to speak on anything else at all, come on up. You get 3 minutes to state your name, your address, and anything that's on your mind. Is there anyone that would like to address council this evening?
Good evening, Council. My name is Suzanne Janik. I live at 482 East Hazelhurst. I have 2 events that are coming up in Ferndale that we wanted to let the council and everyone know about. The first one being the Perennial Exchange at Blooms on Saturday, May 14th at 9 a.m., put on by the Ferndale Beautification Council. We encourage all the gardeners or new gardeners and new property owners to come and share gardening stories, share the perennials, and learn what there is for the Ferndale Beautification Commission to help them out with. The second is a family-friendly event, the Rainbow Run, which is Sunday, June 5th. It is a 5K and a 2K. It also has the addition this year of the 2K Canine Color Walk. So you can bring your canine with you, and they can do the course and get a little colorful.
My dog would not walk 2K.
What?
My dog would not be carrying the second K. I like the idea.
You can put them in a wagon.
Right.
You can sign up for the Rainbow Run at rainbow-run.com.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarification,
Yes.
in the past, for several years, it has always been on the same day as Ferndale Pride, but this year, you're actually going to be on Sunday,
This year it is going to be on Sunday.
and the route is going to be on the west side of Woodward, correct?
Yes, the route is going through the west side of Woodward.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address council this evening? Ann Heller.
Hello, Ann Heller, 1024 Leroy, this time speaking as board president for Fern Care Free Clinic. That's all. Coming up on, almost forgot that, May 6th, Friday, is our 8th annual dinner, if you can even believe it, the 8th annual dinner to support Fern Care, meaning that we have been an organization for 8 years and a functioning clinic this August for 6 years. It's unbelievable. And it's going to be once again where we were last year, which to great acclaim, which is the Dawson Great Lakes Museum down on Belle Isle, a beautiful site, and with the weather and the water. And last year we obligingly even had a freighter pass so that if it was a photo opportunity, it was just wonderful. So we will be back there again. And just one of the things that is a little bit different is usually our guest speaker is someone who speaks on health issues in a very broad manner. This time, we have 3 patients who have gone on to insurance who are going to talk about their experience with Fern Care and how in the world they got to where they are with their health today. So it's a little different, but it might be very interesting. Strolling dinner, silent auction. Tickets are $50 per person, and you can go on our website, ferncare.org, and it's right on the homepage. Just punch it in. You can purchase your ticket through PayPal that way. So please, once again, we invite everybody, because without all of you, we wouldn't be where we are. And it should be fun. It should be a lot of fun. And we just hope for great weather, too, when you come. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about is that if any of you saw the Free Press yesterday, in the Free Press, it was a small, like 3-paragraph article. OLSA, which is the Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency, is part of the Community Action Alliance, is offering assistance with water bills to residents of 8 communities in Oakland County. Only 8. And we are the only county in, only city in South Oakland County that is one of the cities that was chosen for our residents to get assistance with their water bills. And I don't know who to say thank you to. I'm thinking Helene Zach, because she is with the county, possibly, but whoever it is, we have to say thank you. Yeah, the communities are Pontiac, Keego Harbor, Bingham Farms, Orchard Lake, Farmington Hills, Commerce Township, Orion Township, and Ferndale. So here we are. But residents need to know, and this is 2 things, and I'll tell you what we're going to do about that in just a minute. It's a pretty wonderful program. If you qualify, it can include bill assistance up to $1,000 per household to assist with water bills, home water audits for households with above average water usage, home repairs up to $1,000 to fix minor plumbing issues that are causing high water usage, water saving kits, and training classes provided by EcoWorks. So it's a pretty thorough program. And the way people need to find out about this is, I'll give you the number. You call 313-386-9727. Let me do that again. 313-386-9727. And when you call the number, the people that are going to answer is Wayne Metro Alliance. Don't be put off by that. That's who is organizing this for OLSA. And then they take you through the qualifications and criteria. And if you do, there's a good chance that you're going to get to have some assistance. It's a wonderful program. Why it was only 3 paragraphs tucked on the page in the Free Press where they talk all about county happenings, I don't know. It's a pretty big deal. Also, I called Barb Miller this afternoon because I said if I was going to announce this, there's a good chance that even if I told the number 10 times, they'll call you anyhow. So Barb is prepared with the number to let them know. But if anybody has any issue around water bills, and as you know, it's been in the news, I'm probably not the first person to tell you that, please, they should take advantage of this. So thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to address council this evening? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Heather Van Pooker, Executive Director at the Ferndale Housing Commission. I just wanted to say good evening and let you know that we are hard at work at the Housing Commission, doing some spring cleanup, getting ready for our annual inspections. So we'll be undertaking quite a bit of work in the next few weeks. But we're so pleased to be a part of this wonderful community. And I've been there just over a month now. One of the things that I'm proud about and hope it really catches fire is we've begun having resident meetings there at the Housing Commission again. So we're really going to engage internally and then also look to reach out to the community differently and hopefully better going forward as well. So I just wanted to say good evening and let you know that we're doing some good things there and look for our properties to be spruced up this spring. Thanks so much.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Michael Leary.
Good evening. I just want to remind everybody that Saturday, May 21st, is the 5th annual Clean the Ferndale Up. This year's funding, we are pleased to announce, has been made possible by Ferndale Electric, Search Optics, Leonard Brothers, Ferndale Community Foundation, Fabulous Ferndale Forum, and Contractors Clothing. We want to direct everybody to cleantheferndaleup.com to register, to volunteer for that great event that we do now in its 5th year. The other exciting part is that not only are we going to be giving out free complimentary T-shirts to all participating volunteers, but we will also have hot dogs and hamburgers, hot dogs and beverages immediately following the event. This year we also have designated that the primary locations will be the Kulik Community Center campus, as well as the Veterans Memorial on adjacent to Livernois, just south of West 9 Mile. Of course, we will have additional projects determined depending on the turnout of how many volunteers we get. During the same day, here at City Hall in the parking lot, we'll have our 2nd annual recycling drop-off station for community residents as well as businesses here in Ferndale to participate. And of course, this is made possible by SACRA and as well as our heroes at DPW. This year's Clean the Ferndale Up project, the check-in starts at 8 a.m. and it will be held at the Kulik Community Center. So that's important to know.
You don't show up here. Thank you.
Yes. So, and of course,
which I would do.
Yeah. So everybody remember that. And of course, the pepper rally kickoff will begin at 8:45 a.m. And then the actual projects will begin at 9 a.m. and they'll be done and completed by noon. So that's Saturday, May 21st. And you can register as a volunteer at cleantheferndaleup.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Lots of good stuff going on. Anyone else want to address council this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that we enact in one motion unless council removes something from the consent agenda. So let me read the consent agenda now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular and special meetings held April 11, 2016. Item B is the approval of a resolution declaring May 2016 as Mental Health Month. Item C is the approval of a resolution prohibiting city-sponsored travel to the states of North Carolina and Mississippi. Item D is the approval of the special event permit for the Get Real Outdoor Movie Night from 6:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. on July 21st, August 18th, and September 15th, 2016. As detailed in the special event director's summary to reflect the consensus of the special events committee, contingent upon the listed conditions. Approval. Item E is the approval of the special event permit for the Downtown Bike Rodeo on Thursday, May 19, 2016, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., as detailed in the council action summary to reflect the consensus of the special events committee. Item F is the approval of the special event permit for the Fido Does Ferndale on Thursday, October 20th, 2016, from 5 to 9 p.m., as detailed in the council action summary to reflect the consensus of the special events committee. Item G is the approval to execute the engagement letter by the mayor for Romberg, Stover & Associates to perform a comprehensive compensation and benefit study for City of Ferndale positions, as submitted by our Director of Human Resources. Item H is the approval of the license agreement as submitted with Dino Drop, Inc. for the extended outdoor cafe area use on the pedestrian alley as submitted and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Item I is the approval of the Martin Road Park project agreement and resolution of support. Item J is approval of the Harding Park project agreement and resolution of support. Item K is the approval of MDOT Contract 165032 for non-motorized path construction work along the Woodward Corridor Neighborhood Bicycle Network connecting the city of Ferndale, the city of Hazel Park, Oak Park, Pleasant Ridge, and the city of Royal Oak, including wayfinding and permanent signage, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, crossing islands, and pavement marking work, and all together with necessary related work and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to execute that contract. Item L is the approval to grant permission for the use of the city right-of-way adjacent to 1011 Livernois, located between the improved roadway and the existing sidewalks at 1011 Livernois Seasonal Corner for the purpose of exhibiting goods, wares, and merchandise for sale from Friday, May 6th until Sunday, May the 8th, from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m., contingent upon the listed conditions. And finally, item M is the approval of the bills and payroll as submitted by the city manager's office, subject to review by the Council Finance Committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda this evening?
Your Honor, I'd like to have the resolution read declaring 2016 as Mental Health Month. I know the city clerk submitted it. If she'd like to read it, that's fine, or I'd be happy to.
That'd be great. I need a motion on the
I move to approve.
consent agenda first.
Okay.
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Martin. Okay, now, Councilman Martin, but you're suggesting...
I have no preference. I'll be happy to do it. I know the city clerk submitted it. Do you care?
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Please.
I don't want to take a resolution away. Resolution declaring May 2016 as Mental Health Month in the city of Ferndale. Mental health is important for our individual well-being and vitality, as well as that of our families, communities, and businesses. And 1 in 5 Americans experience mental health illness that requires treatment at some point in their lives. And 1 in 10 children have a serious emotional disturbance that, if untreated, can lead to school failure, physical illness, substance use, jail, and even suicide. And May 5th has been designated as the National Children's Mental Health Awareness Day. And the state of Michigan will designate a Mental Health First Aid Training Week in May, recognizing an in-person training that teaches people how to help people with a mental illness or in a crisis. And stigma and stereotypes associated with mental illness often keep people from seeking treatment that could improve their quality of life. And mental illness is a biological-based brain disorder that cannot be overcome through willpower and is not related to a defect in a person's character or intelligence. And mental health recovery is a journey of healing and transformation, enabling people with a mental illness to live in community of his or her choice while striving to achieve his or her full potential. And mental health recovery not only benefits individuals with mental health disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute in our society, but is also enriches the culture and community of life. And the Oakland County Community Mental Health Authority and its service provider agencies are committed to inspiring hope, empowering people, and strengthening communities.
Very good. Thank you very much. To that vein, I would like to read the next resolution, which is a resolution prohibiting city-sponsored travel to the states of North Carolina and Mississippi. And the resolution is as follows. Basic concepts of human and civil rights dictate that discrimination based on another's gender identity or sexual orientation is inherently wrong. And the North Carolina State Legislature passed House Bill 2, which on March 23rd, Governor Pat McCrory signed into law. And House Bill 2 prohibits local governments from passing and enforcing anti-discrimination ordinances, such as that supported by the residents from Ferndale in 2006. And the Mississippi State Legislature passed House Bill 1523, which on April 5th, Governor Phil Bryant signed into law, and HB 1523 allows circuit court clerks and business owners to refuse service to same-sex married couples based on religious beliefs. And the city of Ferndale prides itself on being a place where we value equality and are committed to protecting the rights of all citizens. And the Human Rights Ordinance, adopted by voters in 2006, states that in recognition of the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, it is the policy of the city in the exercise of its police power for the public safety, public health, and general welfare to assure equal opportunity to all persons in the area of employment, housing, public accommodations, and public services. The city of Ferndale, in keeping with the values of its residents, has a duty to promote social justice and combat social oppression whenever available. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Ferndale will not fund, sponsor, or in any way support travel to the states of North Carolina and Mississippi unless travel is necessary to A, enforce the laws of the City of Ferndale or the State of Michigan, B, meet a contractual obligation, or C, protect the health, welfare, or safety of the people of the City of Ferndale. The provisions of this resolution shall be effective immediately on passage until such time as the State of North Carolina repeals HB 2 and/or the State of Mississippi repeals HB 1523. And let me just add that I know that some folks have made the comment that these are symbolic gestures on the part of Ferndale, but I want to say that I read an article in the paper today that the economic boycott that has been waged against these two states is having a very real effect. If we can't get to people through their minds, sometimes we have to get to them through their pocketbooks. And I think the business community, joining with public bodies like ours, joining with celebrities and and musicians, and a whole host of people joining together to stand up against the discrimination in these two states is actually having a difference. And so I'm proud to offer Ferndale's support for that boycott.
May I engage in a conversation on this? While I support this completely, I want to know if we can have the conversation about expanding this to actually say that we will not do business with companies or organizations within those communities. Because while, let's be honest, most of us will not be traveling anytime soon to North Carolina or Mississippi, I think if we make the effort to say that we will not engage business with companies that are in those states, sends a much stronger message. So while I don't expect any change in this today, if we could possibly look into that for the next council meeting.
If I may, through that, I'm supportive of the sentiment of that. I think there's difficulty in identifying who that actually is, because could you define it by corporate headquarters only, or percentage of employees of the company that actually reside in those states, which is much different than corporate headquarters frequently? Or, there's any number of ways you could define that. I'm curious how you would suggest we define that.
Well, I think it would be a variety. You're not looking at just corporate headquarters, but you're looking at products that are produced there. You have to hit them where their pocketbook is.
I agree. I'm just thinking of the how we'd execute that, and then what percentage of products would have to.
And I know that it would be very hard. For example, though this really doesn't apply, South Carolina is a very big banking industry. You couldn't say, I'm going to void all banking, in that situation. I think it's South Carolina, it's not North Carolina.
It has banking?
Banking.
I thought you said banking too.
Banking. Financial banking.
And I will just say, Councilman Polika, that initially was something that we briefly looked at as adding to this, and as Councilman Martin has said, there's complexities in terms of how you define that and how we define who we do business with. So I think your point is well taken. Maybe April and administration could look at different ways that we might be able to do that. It's a complicated question.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. Any other discussion, either by council or by members of the audience, on the consent agenda?
I do have one other, 7K, and I just want to make sure that this is for clarification. This is regarding the contract with MDOT, regarding the bike path network. Thank you. A couple weeks ago, we approved an increase in the funding for that project. Can you please explain how this is different than for clarification for everybody, how this is different than what we approved a couple weeks ago?
It's a resolution of support that MDOT needs in order to enforce the contract of what we discussed.
No change in funding, just okay.
The supporting documentation that they need in order to release the funding.
Thank you.
Yep. Very good question.
All right. Other discussion on the consent agenda? All right. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Leaks May.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on now to the regular agenda. Item A is a consideration of the West 9 Mile Road Transportation Alternatives Grant Co-application. Who's introducing that
Well,
item tonight?
today I'm wearing the hat of the planner. He is finishing actually his last day of grad school today.
Wow.
So next time Justin Lyons is going to be here. So
right.
the conversation on bike lanes continues. As you know, a couple weeks ago, we did approve a coordinated effort between 5 other communities as it relates to the bike route. We now apparently started a trend. So Oak Park is now interested in doing the same thing for 9 Mile. And what we're doing, and I have Justin here from Giffords and Webster, is leveraging federal dollars that we wouldn't normally have. Right now, the bike lanes for that portion of 9 Mile, which includes 2 medians, paint, extra crosswalks, and narrowing the road, is scheduled for 2023, I believe, in our work plan as it relates to kind of managing some of these processes through the road improvements. But because the TAP grant has come up and Oak Park is interested in, they're going to be actually writing this grant and asking us to join with them in order to receive those extra points for partnerships and connectivity, that we're asking to move that up. And we would be leveraging, in total for us, the cost would be $127,000, and we would receive $170,000 in federal funds to support that.
If I may, through the chair, it's $120 additional $1,000?
No, that would be the total project for our portion is $290,000.
No, I get that. The 170 is coming from the federal
Yeah.
grant. We're anteing up 120 that we weren't already on the books for spending.
Not until 2023
So we're moving it forward to when?
to 17, I believe.
Would this be coming out of our bond?
I believe,
Bond money?
I have to double. Justin, do you know if that part was coordinated with the road? Most of the road improvements we had include any of those components, but
I believe that we had planned that the matching funds would be part of the road bond in future projects.
I believe the same thing, so I just wanted to confirm that. But yes, we planned we're trying to coordinate all of those programs in with the road improvements. Now, what's nice about these road improvements is that we would still be able to resurface without removing the new crosswalks and the new medians. So the only thing you would need is new paint, which you need anyway every couple of years.
Just for clarity, we would have done this project in 2023.
That's when it's scheduled.
But we would have had to have paid the whole price because the likelihood of getting a grant, we wouldn't have been guaranteed.
There may or
of
may
getting
not
it.
be a grant at that time.
But that grant money, is that directly beneficial to Ferndale, or does that include the Oak Park piece too?
That's the portion that we get is the 170.
So in 2023 today, or 2030, or whenever that day it was, it slipped my mind, we planned on spending that total $300,000 on bike lanes?
That was we grabbed all of those components into the road bonds, yes, for bike lanes.
But it's more than bike lanes.
Well,
It's public
yes.
space improvements
Yeah.
to the streets.
It's not just that, it's the
No,
whole
I get that, but is this
crosswalk.
project part of that too, or is this just bike lanes?
It's complete streets components, so there's elements, so it's crosswalks, it's multiple things
But
in addition to bike lanes.
This grant is not for just bike lanes, it's for all this
No,
other
it's,
stuff.
yeah, it's for the medians, the new crosswalks, those components. It's not the resurfacing part. That would be part of it, though.
All right.
That'll happen in 2023. So there'll be new, like I said, new crosswalks, new medians to what we call a road diet, if you will, to allow again for that easier walkability.
How does it align with the engineering? So this starts at Pinecrest and goes west, correct?
All the way to Republic, yes.
To Republic. How does it align with the engineering of Pinecrest going east in terms of the lanes and is it?
Well, at the intersection of Pinecrest, you kind of widen back out because of the intersection with the right turn lanes, the left turn lanes.
Right.
So the intersection isn't really going to change right at the intersection. You're going to kind of come into it for the most part. The way that it's configured now won't change too much at the intersection. It's just everything west of the intersection will be changing from 4 lanes to 3 lanes.
So after you get through the intersection,
Correct.
you will be reduced.
Yes.
If I may, through the chair, we just redid that intersection, though. Are we undoing anything we just did?
the intersection of.
Pinecrest and 9, wasn't that part of the work we did a couple years ago?
No. I mean, there are traffic signal improvements proposed later this year on a separate project, but, so there will be a little bit of sidewalk work along with those traffic signal improvements.
So forgive me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to hold this up or anything, but there was a project at that intersection where we had to take all the signs down, not all of them went back up, we had a lot of discussion around it.
It was,
I believe it was.
What was that?
it was part of the West 9 Mile project, right?
Right,
The
so
DDA.
we did go into that intersection for that. So we did redo that 3 years ago.
Parts of it, but not the whole thing. I think they're only going to be taking the west side
But let me
of
re-ask my
Pinecrest.
question then. Anything we just did in the intersection, are we going to have to retouch because of this? Whether it's halfway through the intersection, any of it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I think if I recall, most of the change at that intersection was done on the east side of the intersection. The west side of the intersection wasn't really worked on.
There was a lot of work on the intersection. Where they drew the line in the intersection, it doesn't matter to me, but I'm just curious.
As long as what you're saying is please don't duplicate work
Please
that
don't,
we've
let's not
already.
rip up something we just put down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd like to confirm that in 2023, when we do this resurfacing again, we're not going to be shelling out additional money to be redoing a lot of the stuff that we're doing today.
No, I think the monies that this grant are really to look at the road diet aspect of it. The money that was budgeted in the bond issue was for the resurfacing portion of the actual road work. This was to convert with pavement markings and add the islands. That's what this cost.
So this wasn't part of the work in 2030?
Well,
2023.
It's part of the Ferndale Moves initiative rolling into the.
I know, I'm just trying to determine if this is money we've already budgeted for or if this is an additional ask.
No, it was, we were going to incorporate all of the Ferndale Moves portions into the road bond issue. This would alleviate some of that cost by getting it from the federal government.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your
Yes.
question, it is included.
And through the chair, just to clarify, we did put in crosswalk treatments like the paved fake brick, pounded cement, stamped cement, as well as new ADA ramps, as well as bike sharrows only on the east side of the intersection on 9 Mile. Does that help clarify?
Sure.
In the packet, you have a drawing of some of the improvements, and I noticed that right near the section of Highland and 9 Mile, the creation of an island, and it looks very similar to the island that is on Hilton that tends to get run over repeatedly because it's so close to the intersection. I would highly suggest that you reconsider the location of that island as that close, because I understand, people who are making a left turn off a Highland trying to go east on the street don't realize that island's always there and run right over it. We have barrels that now are permanently there, kind of, to make people aware. So I'm just throwing it out there.
I understand that we did take a look at that, knowing that the issue on Hilton, as you can see, we did offset where the crosswalk is in relation to the sidewalk along Highland. That wasn't the case on Hilton, but in order to provide a pedestrian refuge in an island, that's basically the ideal location for that island and provide a pedestrian refuge. I have no issues taking it out.
I'm not necessarily saying that you have to take it out. I think you might want to just move it a little more east. Maybe does it have to be that long? Can it be half the size and maybe just moved a little further?
We can
maybe the western part just cut off and use the eastern. I don't know.
We hear you. There were multiple different issues with that Hilton one, so we were we hear you, and
Okay.
it's being addressed, but that they were very different factors hitting that Hilton particular, the Hilton median.
Through the chair, if I
Yes.
may. If I recall, these TAP grants are very competitive. There's only 10 awardees per year, and multiple cities, or cities apply all the time. And the ones that get the most points are the ones who collaborate with cities and neighborhood groups around them. And so I think Oak Park really trying to improve their streets for their residents and connect to our community is, I think, a very good goal. All of the communities around us has been supporting us over the years as we tried to connect to their communities. And so to that regard, I'm supportive of this grant resolution. We are by no means guaranteed to win. And so I think throwing our hat in the ring by partnering up is a good thing. And at the end of the day, we're talking about 0.3 miles of investment of streets for Ferndale to connect to Oak Park. If the Google magic of directions, measuring directions of distance that I've just threw up on the Google map, it is really only 0.3 miles, and we're, right, it's a really small portion, and if we need to pull ahead by 5 years and get a discount on our pricing, I think it's all worth at least trying.
I don't have an objection to trying, through the chair, if I may respond to that. The distance is irrelevant to me, and that's not the issue or the point on this. I'm all for applying for grants that share. I just repeatedly, over the last few meetings, we've gotten additional requests for costs. And so I was seeking clarity if this is additional or a renewal. But keep in mind two things. It's still taxpayer dollars, bonds are not. And two, pulling ahead the construction by 5 years pulls ahead all the maintenance that goes with it by 5 years too. So it's not a zero-sum game from this perspective. And so that's why I want to make sure we're really careful, because I don't think we do this, but I don't want to fall into a trap where we're looking at this, losing sight that this bond money is still taxpayer dollars they have to repay. And I'm not saying we're doing that today. I feel the need to take that extra step to make sure we're being good stewards of it. So that was the base of my questions. I'm supportive of it. We're fine. Let's move forward.
Well, I agree, and I've already warned Justin, please don't bring back a 30% increase for us to approve
Well,
in order to...
You know what I'm thinking, that's right.
I
We've
know.
done this.
I like 3 times the charm. No, not for this. So,
Do we know what Oak Park's share of this is?
Oh, like $2 million.
Yeah, it's a huge portion.
It's a significant investment for the community of Oak
They're doing a
Park.
lot of improvements to NIMAL, which is actually sparking a lot of conversations for us as well. So, they're doing a total reinvestment in their NIMAL portion.
All right, we don't have a motion yet.
Don't you do? Didn't we?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the resolution of support for the 2017 Transportation Alternatives Program, the co-application for West 9 Mile Road improvements with the city of Oak Park.
Support.
By Piana and supported by Polika.
I just want to say that I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Piana and Councilman Martin's comments. I look at this as being, we're moving a project forward in order to save some money. Now, I don't expect that, what's the grant amount, 160?
170.
170. I don't expect that the savings in 5 years is going to be 170. You're going to get increase in, construction costs and material costs, and, but if we can save $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 between this year and 5 years from now, to me, it's worth it.
Any other discussion, questions?
I just love how other communities are reaching out and kind of following suit to what we've started. And I grew up in Oak Park, so I'm really happy to see those changes. It's very different now, and it looks like it's going to be much different for the better. And I'm excited about it, so I'm definitely in support of it.
Then if there's no further comments, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lakes May?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on now to item B is a consideration to authorize a letter of intent with Carol Walker for parking consulting.
Even my glasses don't help me.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be introducing this item. As I prefaced during the last City Council meeting, the city went out and issued a request for qualifications in late February. We reviewed with an interview panel comprised of the mayor and city administration, membership of the DDA's administration, to review proposals submitted by Carl Walker of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Rich and Associates of, Rich and Associates of Southfield, Michigan. The interview panel did fully recommend to move forward with negotiations with Carl Walker. Since then, the city is continuing to work through the negotiation with Carl Walker, but we did recognize that we do want to move forward on a timeline, and so to do so, we asked them to present a letter of intent to begin to do the evaluation and design phase in reviewing the 3 sites that have been recommended by the parking committee. And so in doing so, this letter of intent is kind of the trigger that helps us move that forward. What I am recommending is an approval of the letter of intent and the terms that I had referenced in the cover letter on pages 9 and 10 in the LOI. And then I would expect to come back on May 9th with a more detailed, comprehensive agreement for you to review, which is outlined in Exhibit B, the AIA agreement. That's a standard architectural agreement that we'll be negotiating over the next few weeks. But we did want to begin the early phases, and so we can start doing some site evaluation of each of the sites and begin doing some of the geotech reviews. So with that, may I answer any questions? And I can, if you'd like, I can speak a little bit more in detail about the Phase 1 items, but I also recognize you'll probably ask some questions about that, so I can just await those questions, or I can preface those if you'd like.
All right, we'll open it up for questions, but I want to make a comment because I served on the committee that helped review both of these companies, and so a couple of things. Number one, both companies were immensely qualified in building parking decks. It's what they do. They built all the decks around here that you can think of. They built most of them. These are experts at building decks in all sorts of forms and fashions, but Carl Walker really stood out among the two as the organization that I think best fit with Ferndale and also had the most robust community engagement portion to their plan. That was really important to the committee, how they were going to solicit input from the community. That was really important, and they subcontract with a person who does nothing but that, and so I was really happy about that. And just in case there's any confusion, and you also got a timeline that's barely readable, but we are trying to move this project along as quickly as possible. We have stated for our goals a goal to try to get shovels in the ground by the end of this year. That's a pretty ambitious timeline. I hope we can still meet it. We're going to try to still meet it. We asked them to try to do that. So what that means is we don't have the entire agreement with them because the first step that they have to do is to evaluate the sites that were recommended by the parking committee. So if that doesn't go well, there may not even be a need for the rest of the consulting services. But so this is the first step. But rather than wait until the entire agreement is done and all of the steps are priced out, we wanted to get moving on that because we need to know that regardless. So they're going to evaluate the 3 sites that were suggested by the parking committee, and that's what we have before us. Is that correct, Joe?
That is correct, and thank you, Mayor. That's very well put. I would like to introduce the 3 members that were part of the presentation team for Carl Walker, and once we come back with a full, more comprehensive agreement, we were going to take that opportunity to invite them to come and meet council. Clearly, Carl Walker would be acting as the prime consultant. They would be selecting Fusco, Schaefer, and Pappas, which is an architectural design firm located right in Ferndale, headquartered in Ferndale. And there was Bridgeport Consulting, which is a primary public relations and communications firm that they do subcontract under. Bridgeport is based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they are a lead communications team for the University of Michigan, several municipalities, and other universities as well. And they also have specialized, found in kind of a niche specialization with managing mixed-use parking deck projects, including parking mitigation plans and public input sessions. So Carl Walker, bringing a professional PR firm that was so experienced in leading those public input sessions and leading surveying and stakeholder surveying and analyzing those results, and then really recommending informed parking mitigation plans was a really important asset that Carl Walker presented, and I think that that was very unique from them. So if I could, I will just preface just a real brief overview of the Phase 1 design phase. So if the letter of intent is approved, our intent would be to get all those members in a room and schedule a kickoff meeting within the next 2 weeks. We would also begin the site evaluation of the parking locations, which are referenced in the document as well. We would begin to garner design input, what was interest of the community from a designing perspective, and how we would go about soliciting opinion from the public input session. That's where the public relations firm Bridgeport Consulting would come in line. And we would talk about public input sessions, when we might schedule that and how we might move that forward.
So at this point, yes, if there's questions or comments of Joe? Yep.
Two, I think I want to underline, first I have a couple of statements. To underline what the mayor said about breaking ground in December. This project has gone on in so many iterations for so many years, or this discussion does. I would also, when we get to a final contract, I don't know the feasibility of this, because I understand there are all kinds of things that can go wrong that pushes a project back like this, but I feel it happens all too frequently sometimes. So if we get to a schedule, I wouldn't mind putting some penalties to not meeting the schedule with certain exceptions to that condition. And there's just food for thought to take it back. Honestly, I want to see shovels in the ground by the end of the year. Secondly, I think that mitigation is only part of PR function, and I think the DDA has a very strong role in parking mitigation, particularly if we break ground in December, which is the shopping season. And I've always felt that the DDA should take a broader lead into parking mitigation besides just the PR action. So sooner rather than later, whatever this looks like from a schedule perspective, I would be looking for the DDA to sit down and start working through those operational issues. We've got the PR covered, and that's great because communication is hugely important. But mechanically, how we make that work downtown, I feel is a role for the DDA.
But on that point, and I don't disagree with you that there is a role for the DDA. It's also, that portion isn't going to be done through their PR department. Doing parking mitigation is part of the plan of the, I forget which group, but not from the PR perspective.
And I'm not sure that's clear then, because he said that
They help to inform the parking mitigation plan by leading the public input sessions, creating the surveys, doing the survey analysis, and then kind of pulling out, I guess, the insights that they would get from the public input, and that input will lead how we address concerns for moving forward with parking mitigation plans. It's not.
But they were very clear that they have experience in parking mitigation issues, and we're going to bring that expertise.
They do, and they actually
just simply ask, how do you want to mitigate parking?
I think that's great, but if I ask the question, who is accountable for mitigation at the end of the day? If it's a FUBAR, who do we point to and say you failed to execute? Is that them?
And I think that will be hammered out during the project management as we define the project management timeline. But I hear your concern that you're.
That's a major piece of this. I'd prefer it
that
get
clear
hammered
line
out
of
before we
accountability.
execute a contract, not the planning.
Correct.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Through the chair, to build off of that, just to provide another perspective while we talk about construction mitigation, I think where I would see the DDA as part of this, not only are we trying to educate about mitigating the impact of construction, but we're also looking at a business retention program through the DDA to help businesses understand their business model and practices and how they can adjust to actually deal with the impact of parking. And I think that's, when we talk about mitigation, we need to be a little bit more specific about what activities we're talking about. So there's marketing, and there's also supporting businesses to help them look at their model in order to see where they have new opportunities where they haven't perhaps explored before. And I think this is what we've seen down with small businesses with the streetcar construction, and there's definitely models and experiences that we can draw on to support our businesses for this project.
I think that's wonderful, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
I just
we're on the
want to
same
be able
page.
to point and say who.
I completely agree. At the end of the day, who's accountable?
And let me add that the DDA, in the form of Barry, was part of that selection committee. Dean and I co-chaired the parking committee, the parking task force that recommended it. The whole intent of the entire process is that the DDA and the city work as partners to accomplish our parking challenges. But I hear you. I hear you about that.
Who?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Other comments or questions of Joe?
Well, I just want to say that while I agree with the desire to have, shovels in the ground this year, I have never seen a project go well that was rushed.
I'm not saying right.
And it was a tight timeline. So if it's a choice between speed and quality and thoroughness, I will go with quality and thoroughness and have shovels in the ground in January or February.
I agree with that, Councilman, but the underlying unspoken piece of this is don't put a schedule in front of me that's not realistic and focused on quality.
Agree.
If you don't think
hang on. I'd like one person speaking at a time, okay? Yeah, thank you. So,
no, I'm fine with that. So that was my comment. I just wanted to make sure that I'm looking for speed and I'm looking for thoroughness and quality over speed.
I would like to echo that the interview panel unanimously did, express that same concern where each member had mentioned, yes, we want an aggressive timeline, but we would not sacrifice quality and responsibility in doing so. And that was definitely emphasized by every member of the community, or the panel. Yep.
Okay, other comments or questions?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think some questions I've received is how is this different than the past? And a really easy way to describe it is that the city, rather than responding to someone coming to this city and proposing a project, we're saying, hey, this is our property. We're going to find a partner who can help us be the lead of our own development. And I think this is the difference, which we can better respond to the needs of the community and the businesses. So that's the real big difference between this approach and the approach that we had with former developments like 360. So I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on the difference of why Carl Walker and why this contract.
If I may, through the chair, kudos to the parking committee. I mean, I really am happy and impressed with the work that they did with this. And just that.
Right. And I would add on to what you just said, Councilwoman Piana, is that one of the reasons that we're able to take this approach can be summed up in one word, and that's the economy. People forget, but back when we began to talk to the folks who wanted to do 360, the developers weren't exactly beating down our doors to do projects here because the economy wasn't conducive to that. In fact, if you talk to Derek, he said, he had talked to all the major developers and they just weren't ready to start investing money in those kinds of projects again. The world has changed in the last 2 to 3 years in terms of that. Developers are eager to come to Ferndale and do something, and so we have, I guess now as a result of that, the luxury of saying, okay, we'll control the process, we'll control the development now, and we'll lead this effort. But when we say we, Joe doesn't know how to build parking decks, although he knows how to manage projects, and April doesn't either. And so I want people to understand, this isn't just simply hiring another consultant. This is hiring the people that are going to help run this project for us and bring us the expertise that we wouldn't normally have on staff, you wouldn't expect to have on staff. So this is more than just a consultant who's going to tell us what to do. They're going to manage the construction and the development of this project. And so it's a very different kind of consulting relationship even than we've had before.
Absolutely. The term that would best apply to them would be an owner's representative, and they really are acting as the owner's representative, holding construction managers and project managers accountable to that deadline that we do set, and we would expect to hold them to.
Mr. Mayor, you actually raised a great point in that the economy has changed now, and more investment is going on across the country. So with that, I have to play devil's advocate. Are we going to have issue with the fact that so many other communities are starting to use are starting to do big development in regards to resources, materials, supplies, those kind of increased costs. Contractors, building contractors, the availability of good quality building contractors.
No, sure, that the environment, those are all environmental variables that are influenced by what's going on around us, locally and nationally. And again, that's one of the important reasons of why to choose a Carl Walker as a prime consultant, because they understand those cycles. They understand the purchasing cycles as well in the labor market, and they can also kind of help make recommendations on when to strike on what part of the project to make the biggest benefit for the city. Yeah. They can also give us a heads up on what to look out for too, as far as the next 2 or 3 years, what the environment looks like.
Thank you.
I'd also support that this is also coming at a very good time of confluence when you have the master land use plan update coming to fruition. You have a retail study conducted by Gibbs that worked really closely with the parking committee and the Downtown Development Authority to conduct a needs analysis and kind of an assessment of what the market can bear downtown and what kind of market can be unlocked. So you have all of this information coming to fruition at the same time as this parking deck and public input session. So we are really well positioned to move this project forward now more than ever.
But you raise a good question, Councilman Polika, and they did address that. And I mean, their answer would be the sooner the better, because there is pressure for materials and supplies and workers and all the rest of it. There is a lot of development going on, and it's not, that is an issue that they'll have to manage.
Well, Royal Oak has been talking about a multi-million-dollar municipal complex in City Park.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's beat that.
So maybe my last question is to Dan Christ, and that is, since this is a rather lengthy and detailed agreement, have you read it? Are you comfortable with it?
I have, Mayor, and through the chair.
Yeah.
What is being proposed tonight is only the proposal and the initial planning and programming components. The actual attached AIA agreement between the city and the architect is still being looked at, and it's my understanding that the assistant city manager intends to bring that back with additional detail once that's further negotiated with presumably Walker.
Yes.
So as it relates to the proposal and letter of intent, it's approved as to form to proceed forward on this initial component. It does detail in their April 19th letter what the specific scope of services are that they're going to provide for this initial component.
Good. Other questions or comments?
Just through the chair, I just wanted to, I just lost the page, but this contract is also approving a partnership with Carl Walker's subcontractor team. And where was it?
Yeah.
They are partnering with Fusco, Schaefer, and Pappas for architecture, Bridgeport for public engagement, Zymet Wozniak for civil engineering, and Hagenbusch for landscape architecture. So there's lots of different people being brought in from each respective industry to support this project.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Final questions or comments? All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Do we have a motion?
Oh,
No motion.
No, we
I
don't.
move the city council to authorize that the city move forward with the items represented in the letter of intent with Carl Walker for an amount not to exceed $40,000 to paid for from the auto parking fund.
Support.
All right, moved by Piana and supported by Polika. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on to item C is the consideration of a purchase agreement for 906 Emwell.
Your Honor, I'd be happy to address that.
That would be great. And Joe, April had to go,
She did, Your Honor.
and so maybe Joe, you want to, as our city, our assistant city manager, you could fill in for her for the remainder of the meeting. That bring it in from the bullpen. That's right. Don't let up 3 runs in the last half hour.
Come on up to the big leagues.
Thanks, Joe. All right, Dan.
If I could, Mayor,
Yeah.
before you this evening is a consideration of a proposed purchase agreement regarding the potential sale of the city's property at 906 Emwell. Derek Delacourt was charged with listing certain city lots of excess property where the city didn't have a utilization in mind as it related to property. This particular property was tax foreclosed as to how the city came into possession of it. There was an initial purchase agreement that was submitted to the city. In discussing the matter with the city manager, it was determined that a revised purchase agreement for the real estate, better addressing the terms that the city normally seeks when it sells property, be developed and prepared. And so there is a 4-page document in your packet this evening, which is a purchase agreement for the sale of 906 Emwell.
Through the chair, is it appropriate, could we take both items C and D since they're so similar together at the same time?
That's up to the discretion of council. If you wish, Your Honor, I could address just very briefly.
Why don't you? Yeah.
The issue, what is currently item 8D, is also the potential authorization to enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of 3331 Harris. And again, that's also property that the city acquired through tax foreclosure, doesn't have a need, and is attempting to sell. And so there's a 4-page proposed purchase agreement for consideration where if you elect, the motion would be to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign both of those purchase agreements.
Okay. And so any discussion or question on either item, we'll vote on them separately, but they're both, that's a good point, Councilman Martin, they're both similar situations.
I have a question. I couldn't tell from the information within the packet, but the individuals or the people purchasing these properties, are they, do they own adjacent properties, or are these individuals that intend to build on the property new construction?
Through the chair, both purchase agreements, I don't know specifically whether they own, the proposed purchasers own property nearby, but the purchase agreements as drafted provide that the purchaser is required to put a new residential structure on the property within a period of 2 years from the date of closing.
Yeah. Good question. Yep.
So just to clarify, the owner that we're selling to tonight cannot resell the property immediately for a higher
That's correct.
profit.
What happens after 2 years? Do they have to sell the property back to the city, or can they hold it and then make a profit on it 2 years?
The purchase agreement has a language of a reversionary interest, so the city would get the property back.
Okay.
Not purchased back. It would come back to the city.
So they would lose their investment?
That's correct.
Win-win.
Through the chair, can you just sort of explain the difference between the bid value for this home and the real market value for this property? Are those one and the same?
As I understand it, Derek had a discussion and undertook a review of what the market rate would be for those types of lots, and utilized a consultant from CBRE in connection with that, and came up with the recommended values. And I believe that was coordinated through April, so there's not an independent appraisal, as I understand it, as it relates to the proposed purchase price.
Did that answer your question?
Why didn't we get an independent appraisal?
Through the chair, my understanding is Derek was asked to expedite this, and there was a analysis undertaken as it related to the market rate, but there was not a appraisal that was paid for.
May I ask, what is the third property? And because I think you said it's 3, but we're only in the process of selling 2. Where's the third, just out of curiosity?
No, I don't know, where do you?
The city currently holds 3 vacant residential lots?
Correct. We're only.
Oh.
I think there's another issue. There are, I believe, a couple other parcels of property,
Right, okay.
but that's not before
No,
council.
that's a good point. And originally, I think maybe even the Hilton property was going to be on here, and that had to be reworked.
I would like to move that we approve the purchase agreement for the sale of 906 M Well for $25,000, city parcel 2425334290022, and to approve the purchase agreement for the sale of 3331 Harris Street for $20,000, city parcel 2425261022019, and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute both purchase agreements.
Support on both?
On both.
So item C, moved by Martin, supported by Ray.
On legal counsel, I've clarified we can take it up as one motion.
It's up to council whether you wish to have it combined. So my proposal is there's a second.
One motion.
Thank you. Okay. So moved by Martin, supported by Leaks May. Now, other questions, comments on this item? One comment I would like to make, I think most people on council are aware of this, but we've had discussions, I've had discussions with city administration. We don't have a lot of properties, and they, as you can see, they don't generate a huge amount of revenue, but they generate some revenue, and we are in the process of selling off some properties. And we are exploring the possibility of using the sale of city-owned properties, putting that aside in a temporarily restricted account for the possible community benefit of Ferndale. For details to be presented to council at a future meeting. We don't have all the details worked out, but the idea is that we have this sort of one-time opportunity to make funds. So I just wanted to be transparent to council that I've asked administration to just sort of keep these kinds of dollars separate. Don't just dump them in the general fund, because there may be an opportunity to do something for our community with these. With the proceeds, and just to be clear, minus any expenses that the city and therefore the taxpayers incurred in either purchasing or processing these properties, but the net sale of these properties be kept aside for a possible future project. So if there's any issues with that, let me know. But
Nothing like teasing us with a
well,
a little more.
More to come. More to come.
But I completely understand now, working in government for the last couple of years.
Exactly.
Through the chair, I do have some concerns that I feel like we're missing some evidence of the price for this property in our packet, and I just don't feel comfortable approving this right now because we haven't had an independent review of the property, and not to say that CBRE didn't do their due diligence, it's just not as evidenced in this packet. And so I'm not really sure if I don't know, my gut's telling me are we getting the best deal, and I conclusively cannot say tonight that we are, based off of what is in our packet presented.
I completely agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem Piana.
So I'm very supportive of sale of this property.
Right.
Right. That, don't get me wrong on that.
So what would you want to instruct staff to secure to?
I'm not sure what the right piece of evidence is, but having an independent assessment of the property, I think, would be helpful just to include in the packet.
For purposes of discussion, if I may, as a public document, what do we run the risk if it comes in less than what we've gotten under purchase agreement?
Well, then
I
think we've done our due diligence.
We can't pick and choose after we do it.
No.
And through the chair, there may be other material that I'm not aware of that Derek and the consultant utilize. I just not privy to that.
But we're not aware of it either.
Right.
I guess that's part
and,
of the issue.
this could be, that is part of the issue for me. And what we could do, a possible solution is to table this. And so since this is part of a transition of an employee, to have staff go back and just look at any evidence that could exist that would support my interest in answering the question, are we getting the best deal? And so rather than taking a vote on it, I recommend tabling it.
And it's very possible that the documentation exists, that unless I'm missing something, it just wasn't included in the paperwork? I'm assuming that we had a third party. We did not have a third party.
No, I think what he's saying is he's not sure that we did have an independent third-party assessment of the property.
Typically, the city partners with CBRE on assessments of property, but I can't state that that's a fact, but I can certainly verify that and pull whatever records bring those back.
Dan, Chris, you mentioned some desire to expedite this. Is there any reason in your mind that waiting 2 weeks to secure that would
affect with respect to there's not a date that's identified on the property concerning 906 Emwell, but there is it appears to be a signature of April 19th on the 3331 Harris, and the proposed purchase agreement provided that that offer was in place and could not be revoked for 14 days. So there is a risk if council tabled the matter to its next regular meeting that that offer would not extend to that next council meeting.
They can revoke their offer now, right?
That's correct.
Because it's 14 days, right? So that would be 2 weeks.
Well, it's a risk I'm willing to take. We have a significant amount of infill property being redeveloped right now or built on, and I don't think we'll have, this buyer probably won't go away and turn down this opportunity, and this is not the reason why I'm asking to table this. I want to keep this buyer as much as possible, but I just want to make sure we have the appropriate evidence on the amount of sale.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a bit surprised because in most of the other purchases, and I know this is different, this is vacant land as opposed to like the American Legion building where we got several offers and we were told of the various offers. I don't know if there were other offers on this based on all the information. Were the adjacent property owners notified, and did they express an interest in buying the property? I don't know. It's just very incomplete.
Yeah. Well, I would support your desire to table and get more data on this. So I don't know what we do with it. So that's at least
We have to
3 of
amend the
us.
motion.
So what happens to a motion that's been made?
Can I amend my own motion and vote against it? I mean, is that allowed?
Ask the parliamentarian over there.
Can. All right. You don't have to vote.
I will amend the motion then to table this until the next regular council meeting. You need to support.
Would you support? Yeah, okay. So we have a new motion to table until the next council meeting. Any further discussion? All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
So let me just clarify, we are tabling both items.
Yes.
Do we need one vote or two?
One vote.
One vote, okay. Council members Piana?
Yes.
Leaks May?
Yes.
Martin?
No.
Polika?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes. All right. All right, that concludes our regular agenda. We'll move now to call to council. Chief, anything for the good of the community from the police department this evening? All right. Jenny, anything from HR this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just one quick reminder. This Thursday, we are holding our first, what we hope to be annual, Take Your Kids to Work Day. Jill and I have worked to coordinate the program this year with all of our departments and department heads to venture through the departments within the city to include the court, the fire department, the police department, DPW, and parks. Right now, we have 24 children signed up, and their parents are joining us as well. I believe Councilwoman Raylan Leaks May is joining, and Mayor Coulter will be attending over lunch as well. So we're really excited for the day that we have planned, and we look forward to doing it again in the future.
Wonderful. Jill, anything else from the Recreation Department?
Yes, just a couple quick announcements on the master land use plan. Coming up this Wednesday, the 27th, from 9:30 to 11, Hamilton Anderson will be at the Coolett Community Center doing an open house. They'll have a brief presentation. They're going to be presenting their initial findings, so folks are invited to pop on in and learn more about the process. And secondly, launching, hopefully by the end of the week, the survey for the master plan related to just specifically Parks and Recreation will be going out to all residents. That information will be on the city website. We'll be getting it out via social media. I believe the next city newsletter information will be on there, so we encourage everyone to share your feedback and fill out the survey. Thank you.
Excellent. I guess you're economic development tonight, aren't you? Nothing further this evening? All right, thank you. Lloyd, anything from DPW this evening? Yes, indeed. All right.
In order to, just to pick up on what Jill already stated about the survey, DPW, as we did in a previous survey, we're creating signs that we'll be installing throughout the parks and as well as a location in the downtown so that people can just take their smartphone, take a shot of the QR code. It'll bring them right to the survey. We found the last time that we tried that and we got out into the community with this that it really helped with the percentage of results that we got back. It was a much higher percentage than what we normally would get. Also, we still were going to do hard copies, and they'll be placed at the Coolidge Center and other locations. So people who aren't into this whole smartphone thing will still have the ability to participate in the survey. In addition to that, I don't have a oversized check to present, but I have good news as far as the city has been awarded an MDEQ grant for recycling, which will help pay, the value of the grant is about $30,000, but it will help us introduce single stream recycling to one day's route, which has not yet been determined, and will pay for about a third of the cost of the carts themselves. So it may allow us to do an initial program, pilot program, work out some of the bugs, and then when we do a full implementation, we'll have some lessons learned. So I'm pretty excited about that. $30,000 is nice to help bring costs down to the community overall. And that's
Thursday's a good day.
Pardon?
Thursday's a good day.
You know what? It's up for discussion, but I think probably what we will do is weigh which one of the day's routes has the most recycling and who has the historic tonnage is what I'm thinking. And because if they're the most committed recyclers, we're going to give them an opportunity to show us how committed they are. Thank you.
Great idea. Fair idea. Kara, anything from community engagement this evening?
Okay. Hi. Yes, I'm extremely excited to announce that we have finally finished the content refresh for the city's website, ferndalemi.gov. I'm excited because it's really cool, and I'm also excited because it took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, and a lot longer than I told Joe it was going to. I just wanted to give everybody a really quick couple of points about what has changed and why we changed it. First of all, just so everybody knows, it's content only. So text and photos, no design. That will come later. We're not on schedule to do that quite yet. In general, I think users of the site are going to find that there are a lot more pages and a lot less content on each page. There was some confusion. Did a lot of research as part of this process to see, how people go about finding information, what they're chronically not finding, and why. One of the first things to point out is that on the home page, there's now new scrolling photos at the top. We're going to use that space to maybe try and tell a slightly richer story about Ferndale, highlight some information about upcoming programs and services. They're going to change out every couple of months probably or so. So we're excited about that. In the main links at the top of the page, there's now a new addition. It's called About, and We've got some kind of welcome to the city and here's who we are information that we didn't have before. It's also going to be a new home for news, city manager's office, and kind of some of our basic department directory, some of our basic functions. A lot of pages have moved. We're careful not to do anything with some of the most widely used pages, but I did want to mention that elections have moved. They're no longer under services, it's now under government. So all of the election and city clerk information can be found there. One more point is that a lot of our pages, a lot of our departments anyway, had 2 pages. One under services and a second page with different content under government and departments. Those have all been combined now, and they're only found in one place, and in most cases that place is services. So people who are used to finding different information in 2 spots, it's all in one now. And then finally, doing some research on nomenclature, a lot of the page titles themselves have changed. For example, public services has changed to public works. Feels like that's resonates a little bit more with our audience. They seem to understand more what that is. The process, like I said, was a little bit longer than intended, and in the last couple of weeks, as we've been really pushing content over, there have been some instances of broken links and content that was supposed to be in one place and it hadn't quite gotten there yet. So we just wanted to apologize. I'm sorry for the inconvenience to our residents who are trying to find information, but it should be good now. We've got one of our staff assistants going through and just kind of checking every single page, making sure that all the links are working the way they are supposed to. But if residents have any issues, or if they just simply can't find some content because it has moved, or if they have comments about any of the changes, I would encourage them to email me at ksokol, SOKOL, at ferndalemi.gov.
Any questions for Kara? Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to check it out. Chief Sullivan, anything for the good of the community from the fire department?
Mr. Mayor, Council, early Friday morning, we did a Oakway mass casualty incident drill at Royal Oak High School, where an assumed consumer's gas leak explosion occurred, and we had like 33 kids made up in moulage. So they looked the part, and then we let the first responding Royal Oak unit handle it, call in that they needed help. All the Oakway responded, and Channel 4 was there and did film some of it with Guy Gordon. So if you want to see that, that's on WDIV, Channel 4, click on Detroit, and it's called Training for a Disaster with School Shooting Simulation, but they were wrong. It was a gas explosion simulation, but nevertheless, the drill would have worked for any type of emergency with that many people hurt. School shooting seems to be on everyone's mind, but
yeah. And how did it go?
It went very well. It went very well from 2 perspectives. Mistakes were made, and we saw things that we need to bone up on, particularly communications. I was frustrated that we set the drill up by EMS people, but we weren't really considering there's a school officer, and technically that probably would have been the first responder on the scene, so we should have integrated what exists already with what the drill is. Because we like to train as we actually would respond as much as we can in real time in that. So we had some good lessons learned from it. And last year we did a technical rescue drill, and we learned more from that. So this year, and the county came down with some Homeland Security people in that and observed to see what was going on, because Oakway does cover about 64% of the populace of Oakland County. So
good job.
It went well.
Good.
If you want to see it, click on Detroit.
Excellent. Excellent. Cheryl, the budget's done, so anything else from the finance department this evening? All right.
I'm good.
Thank you. Marnie, anything from the city clerk's office this evening?
Just a reminder that we have a couple more big elections this year, and we are always hiring election inspectors. We're looking to augment our current pool by about 50 tech-savvy precinct inspectors. So anyone who might get the day off from their job, especially for the November election, we'd love to hear from you. The application is available on the election worker page of our elections site at ferndalemi.gov.
Excellent. All right.
Yes, we can do partial day shifts for people who might not be able to work from 6 a.m. until the cows come home. So, yeah, we do have shifts that they section up to about 9-something an hour for election inspectors. So it is a paid position. It's not all volunteer, and it's people just like all of us who manage our precincts. So we would love to have more people apply.
Excellent. Joe, not putting you on the spot, but anything?
Just a couple things. One, I wanted to remind everybody that the residential parking zone program will go into effect, officially being enforced next week, Monday, May 2nd. So residents in those zones who've been given packets, we have this week left to still pick up your packet or your permits at City Hall. And we will begin live enforcement next week. We've been giving warning citations and informational citations for the past month in preparation. Second, I'd like to build on Ann Heller's gracious introduction of the REP program, which is the Residence Assistance Program for utility bills. She's absolutely right. It didn't get the coverage, and we were just having that conversation this morning. So our communications team is actually working with some of our media partners to build our own story, and we're going to promote that within our community and with our media partners over the next several days. We hope to launch something by the end of the week.
If I may, through the chair, several residents have reported they were unable to get their RPZ stickers because our system was down, quote unquote, is what they were told. Is that rectified?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, the system was down. You do have to come in to City Hall as of this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah. We collected the information, and we will process it tomorrow. Unfortunately, the database was down this morning.
Okay. With all due respect, some of them were turned away, just so you're aware.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes.
In regards to the water bill project or the special funding, have we noticed an increase in delinquent payments to our water? It's very odd that out of all the communities, we would have been one of the.
Well, actually, and I could correct that information, the city of Ferndale actually chose to opt in. It was an opt-in program.
Okay.
And we thought that this was a program that could be a benefit to some of our residents. And so the alternative would be just to not offer them any resident assistance programming. So we chose to opt them in. And then really the eligibility is managed by the Great Lakes Water Authority. They set as a board the requirements for eligibility in the program. And then our local administrator is OLSHA. So OLSHA is managing this program on behalf of the city of Ferndale.
Before I came on the council, I think it was a year before I came on the council, Councilman Martin really pushed to have the $50 fee eliminated from delinquent.
Yes.
Have we noticed a decrease? Has that helped? I mean, not that I'm looking at reinstating it. I'm just wondering if that has helped in some way to reduce the amount of delinquent accounts. And
I would say the trend hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed, though.
No.
If I may, the issue was not so much that the fee was there as that it was compounded. So every year they got fee after fee after fee after fee, and there was just no digging out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm very supportive of this. I think with our master land use results, we have a 16% poverty level in our community, and I think we definitely have residents who have a need and would welcome assistance.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Dan, anything for the legal?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Councilman Martin.
Yep, two things. One, the grant applications for the Ferndale Community Foundation will be available on Monday, May 2nd. You can reach them by going to our website, www.ferndaleCommunityFoundation.org, or you can just give me a call, 248-672-4067, and I'll email you a copy of the application. We'll also be mailing those out to the area nonprofits. Again, this is our micro grant program, and we will be making determinations and giving awards in June. Secondly, the barbecue 9th annual, believe it or not, barbecue burnout rib cookout is scheduled for May 14th. This is the big one behind Dino's. He's moved it from the winter months into May, and proceeds from the burnout this year are going to the Ferndale Community Foundation. So mark your calendars, come on out. Cooking starts at noon. I think there's general admission without the food after 4, but there's a number of great bands out there. Information's on Facebook, and we'll have more to come as we meet, but always a great time. So mark your calendars, plan to come on out. eat till you're sick and have a great time.
Won't be the same without snow, but.
I know, right? Well, if you'd like, I'll bring a slushie for you.
Maybe they'll have an even bigger turnout.
Yeah, I hope they will, yeah. It's,
Councilwoman Leaksman.
Yes, so this coming weekend, I just wanted to announce that John F. Kennedy Elementary is having their All You Need Is Love variety show based on the Beatles. And the show will be at the high school the 30th, Saturday the 30th at 7 o'clock, and Sunday, April 1st, May 1st, I'm going back a month. So Sunday, May 1st at 3 o'clock at the high school. So it's going to be a great show. I've got 2 performers in it. Tickets will be sold at the door. I believe they'll be $10 at the door. And if you know anything about Ferndale and our arts and our talent, our kids will put on quite a show. I don't know if you had the privilege of being at the Electrify Your Strings this past weekend, but it was like being at a rock concert. And this Mark Wood with the Trans-Siberia Orchestra just really gave our kids an experience, and I saw them rock out like I've never seen before, so it was something to see. So if you didn't get to see that, come to this and see the younger kids, their talents, and then I encourage you to stay involved in the arts because Ferndale Schools really does it up right. So thank you.
Excellent. Great. Councilman Pollica.
2 things. I did want to reiterate, Mr. Larry brought up the Clean Ferndale Up on May 21st. The recycling component, I really want to push that. Again, if spring cleaning is now, so as you're cleaning out your basements, cleaning out your garages, all those things that we normally can't put at the curb, bring out, except this year we cannot accept tires. Everything else we can still collect. So I don't know why, we just can't collect tires. So the other item is, Chief Sullivan actually kind of put this in my mind when he was up here talking about the emergency drill that you did. Do we conduct annual drills within our office buildings, our Kulik Center, City Hall, fire drills, inclement weather drills, etc. for staff?
We are working on an emergency response plan, and Chief Sullivan is actually heading that up with staff. Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I have to, I think everybody has to. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Piana.
Yeah, I have a new opportunity for some of our Ferndale emerging leaders to consider joining. Ferndale City Council and our staff have been focused on how to increase engagement with our young adults, 18 to 35, and the new opportunity is with Metro Mode, which is part of Model D Media. If anybody's read about the new businesses and great things happening in communities, this is a partnership with the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan and Metro Mode and Metro Matters to involve young kids or young professionals to talk about the persistent challenges and opportunities in Southeast Michigan. And so what is involved is that these leaders who are approved to be on this board will meet every few months, and it's an editorial advisory board of emerging leaders from various communities and professional backgrounds. These up-and-comers will discuss what they see in the region, the problems, the promise, and the perspectives. It really is about storytelling from their point of view about what are the possibilities to make a difference in our region. There's only 4 meetings that they need to commit to throughout the year, and they need to apply by May 15th. And Kara was hoping that we could post this on the city website, and I've already sent out the link to one of our emerging leaders in Ferndale, and I encourage City Council to encourage others to apply as well so that their voices and stories can be told about what they believe our region can be. And that's it.
Excellent. All right. I have just a couple of things. I had the pleasure of being at the Ferndale Education Foundation gala at the Magic Bag last Thursday evening, and it was a wonderful event. I applaud all of the folks from the Education Foundation for all the hard work. I got the pleasure of being the auctioneer at the end, and I have to say that in the big battle between who would get more to cook you dinner, the council or the library, or the school board, council is the winner of that challenge. So we're gonna put it on our next year to
And
try
our bid
to-
went for?
Huh?
And our bid went for, we raised how much with that?
$1,000.
That's a lot of money for Taco Bell.
$1,000. So you better get your culinary skills up to speed, because we got some cooking to do.
I have a question about this.
macaroni and cheese.
I actually have an operational question for this. Do we actually have to come up with a menu?
We have to do everything.
Well, in the past,
TBD.
we've come up with the menu, but we do find out what's interest.
I just came up with the menu. We're good.
Anita's Kitchen.
And then my last item is that we have a special guest with us today. A junior from Roper High School, Cameron, is here with us, and he has to shadow me and April for part of the day as part of his government class, and he is, maybe after sitting through 2 hours and 40 minutes, he will not want to be involved in local government anymore. But Cameron, welcome to Ferndale. It was great to have you here and to show you around Ferndale. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Whew. I didn't